Republican senators joined forces with Democratic senators to grill Donald Trump's top military leaders to expose Donald Trump's violations of the law. You had Republican senators like Mitch McConnell and Senator Kennedy joining forces with Democratic senators like Coons and others, grilling these top Trump military leaders and exposing things like Donald Trump's failure to send $400 million or more that was already earmarked for Ukraine to Ukraine, while Donald Trump continues to remove sanctions against Russian oil. These senators joining forces, Republicans and Democrats, to expose that Donald Trump is refusing to make munition sales to Taiwan. The top military leaders are calling it a pause by our political leaders, meaning Trump and Hegseth are refusing to give this $12 to $14 billion munitions package to Taiwan. Following Donald Trump's trip to China, this seems like one of the deliverables that Trump probably promised Xi Jinping. And we know that Xi Jinping was refusing to meet with the Undersecretary of Defense, who calls himself the Undersecretary of War, Elbridge Colby. Xi Jinping says, clarify whether or not you will be doing an arms sales with Taiwan, because if you do an arms sales, we're not going to buy those Boeing jets, Donald Trump. We're not going to buy soybeans, and we are not going to give you rare earths. In other words, Xi Jinping trapped Trump and demonstrated Trump's utter weakness, as Trump's like, oh, we're going to get 200 jets for Boeing purchased by Xi Jinping. Well, it was supposed to be 500. Donald Trump's like, China promised us like 20 million metric tons of soybeans. Under Biden, it was close to 30 million. So you're already getting less. And now Xi Jinping is holding this over your head. And we have these Republican senators joining forces with Democratic senators at this subcommittee hearing to expose what was going on. Also, that Donald Trump is acting clearly contrary to our obligations to NATO allies. We heard from some of the top people in the Navy, I'll share this with you, where they said, look, Navy to Navy, we work well with Denmark and Greenland and Canada. We can't control what the political people are doing. Trump, Hegseth, Elbridge Colby, Marco Rubio, people like that. But we work well Navy to Navy. And if we have the resources, we will be able to continue to work well with them. So let me just share with you what went down. So here you have Acting Navy Secretary Hung Cao saying that the U.S. is pausing arms sales to Taiwan because of the war with Iran. Mitch McConnell is grilling him as much as Mitch McConnell can grill someone. And he goes, right now, Hung Cao, the acting Secretary of the Navy, right now, we're doing a pause in order to make sure we have the munitions we need for Epic Fury. But then he says, but we have plenty of munitions for Epic Fury, right? Trump and Hegseth said, we have more than enough munitions. And you'll hear Hung Cao right after he says, we're pausing the munitions to Taiwan so we can have the necessary munitions for Epic Fury in the Strait of Hormuz and in the Persian Gulf. But we actually have plenty. So if you have plenty, why are you pressing pause on the munitions, the $12 to $14 billion munitions package that was supposed to go to Taiwan? Listen to what Hung Cao says when he was grilled by Mitch McConnell. Here, play this clip.
To buy arms from us. And all of a sudden there's a pause. What are you hearing from the Taiwanese about the pause?
Chairman, I have not heard. I have not spoken to the Taiwanese. However, we have done some foreign military sales to them, and it's just right now we're doing a pause in order to make sure we have the munitions we need for Epic Fury, which we have plenty. But we're just making sure we have everything. But then the foreign military sales will continue when the administration deems necessary, sir.
Now, at this hearing, this was a subcommittee hearing on the defense. Regarding the Navy's 2027 authorization request. The Navy wants all of this money. And part of what the Navy is asking for with this Secretary of Navy, remember Donald Trump fired the old Secretary of Navy because he wasn't building the Trump class of ships quick enough, and they want to call it the Trump class. And a lot of the questions that these individuals are being grilled on is, why are we building a Trump class of battleships for tens of billions of dollars when we know that battleships are not the way modern warfare is fought? Shouldn't we be investing more in unmanned submersive vessels and drones? Why are we doing this boondoggle of naming a class of ships after Donald Trump that's just going to be a waste of tens of billions of dollars? Isn't that waste, fraud, and abuse right there? So let me show you some of this questioning as well. Next, I'll show you questioning from Senator Kennedy, MAGA Republican senator from Louisiana. Here's what he is questioning some of these top military leaders, including Admiral Daryl Claudel. He's also doing the General Eric Smith, cross-examining him, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. Take a listen to this cross-exam right here. Let's play it.
So why don't we go ahead? Don't you think it'd be a good idea for us to gain leverage to make weapons sales to Taiwan right now?
Sir, again, these things are very complex and a full calculus of all the levers of power that are being negotiated and worked. So generally,
I'm sorry. What more do we have to know, Admiral? President Xi has telegraphed his anxiety, his insecurity, now that he knows that America has learned how to fight. We want leverage. We want stability, not a hot war. We want leverage. What's his insecurity? Taiwan. Why don't we just go ahead and sell the weapons to Taiwan that Taiwan wants? The president can call President Xi and say, hey, President Xi, don't take it personally. Don't get excited. Don't get your bowels in an uproar. But I'm selling these weapons. Why wouldn't we do that?
we definitely want Taiwan to be as strong as they can be, sir.
They'd be stronger with those weapons, though, wouldn't they?
Yes, sir.
Don't you think we ought to sell them?
Sir, I'm not going to get in front of the administration's overall calculus on that. That's just not I'm not going to make a statement on that as a service chief.
Okay.
But the capabilities that we're talking about would make them more effective.
And here he is again, Senator Kennedy, cross-examining General Smith, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. Let's play this clip.
He thought he was going to roll in and take it over in 2 days like thunder on a summer night, didn't he?
I believe he did.
But the Ukrainian people have fought back, haven't they?
Yes, sir. They have fought back.
And they now have some of the most sophisticated drone technology in the history of the world, don't they?
Sure, they do. They're doing very well with drones.
And they're giving, with the limited resources they have, they're giving Russia a curb stomping, aren't they?
I would say they are.
In fact, they have knocked out, with their limited resources, 40% of Russia's export ability of their oil. They, since January, using their drones and limited cruise missiles, they have hit oil and gas facilities within Russia over 100 times. Not on the border, within Russia. Right?
Yes, sir.
And Putin was so scared, he almost had to cancel their military parade. Didn't he?
Well, I'm not sure of that, sir, but I will take your word for that, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, how much money? Now, let me just lead you. The world has $300 billion of frozen Russian assets in escrow, don't we?
I don't know, sir.
I do. It's $300 billion. And 2/3 of that, about $225 billion, is sitting in Europe, isn't it?
Again, sir, I'm not sure of that.
Well, I am. And I'm surprised, no disrespect, that you don't know. And Europe has asked our permission to take that $200 to $225 billion. Well, I mean, strike that. That $225 billion, humor me, that's sitting there frozen. Not a single penny is American taxpayer money, is it?
I don't believe it is.
No. It all belongs to Russia, doesn't it?
I believe that is correct.
And the EU has asked our permission to take that money and give it to Ukraine so they can knock Russia in the next week and let's get this war over. That's a good idea, don't you think?
Well, I think anything that can be done to stop that war is a good idea, sir.
Would you support giving that $225 billion, no taxpayer money in America, to Ukraine?
Again, sir, that's outside my purview as a service chief.
Now back to Mitch McConnell right here. Here's what Mitch McConnell is asking about Denmark and our relationship with Denmark. Here, play this clip.
Speaking of Denmark, after the suggestion that somehow we wanted to take Greenland, how are we getting along with the Denmark NATO member?
Sir, Denmark is a very close naval ally. We do a lot with Denmark. They punch way above their weight class, very sophisticated set of capabilities that they bring to bear. And I think our relationship with them is very close. They know that from a Navy perspective, how important Greenland is as key terrain, and our ability to operate in and out of Greenland to protect the Atlantic GI-UK gap from out of area Russian deployers is extremely important. They know it's important from an early warning radar system to understand ICBM threats and other threats that could approach our homeland.
So whatever concern there may have been, you think is blown over?
Sir, I won't speak to the political aspects of that, but I can just tell you, Navy to Navy, we're strong with Denmark.
Good.
We've got some big news that is blowing my mind that it's not getting nearly enough attention. So right now, more than 60% of the United States is experiencing drought conditions, and more than 20% of the country is in extreme drought. Honestly, have you heard about this anywhere? Front page headlines, leading the nightly news? 'Cause it seems like a pretty big deal to me, is all I'm saying. According to climatologists, this is one of the most severe and widespread drought events that we have seen in decades. The main culprit is an unusual La Nina pattern, which shifted storm tracks farther north and left huge parts of the country, especially the south, southeast, and Rocky Mountain regions, without the rainfall that they depend on. And here's the critical climate story in all this. Rising global temperatures are making this drought even worse. Hotter air pulls more moisture out of the soil and vegetation, intensifying dry conditions and putting enormous stress on crops, water supplies, and ecosystems. Colorado, Georgia, and Florida are among the hardest hit states right now, with some areas facing exceptional drought, and relief may not come anytime soon. Experts say that meaningful improvement is unlikely until late summer or even next winter, when a potentially historic El Nino could shift weather patterns in the opposite direction. So the Trump administration can ignore climate change all they want. Climate change sure is not ignoring us, and we need to make sure that we are keeping these issues front and center. That's it for this report. Now I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this news, on climate issues, and on our climate coverage like this? There's so much chaos right now that they're trying to drown out what may be the most important issue of our time. So use your voice and speak out in the comments below. I'll be reading them. Okay, Ben, back to you.
More from Mitch McConnell here, questioning about Ukraine, America's ability to project strength in the Arctic regions, and listen to what some of these top military leaders say. Here, play this clip.
I know you guys are not policymakers, but let me say again that an effort to cut off help for Ukraine is not going to work in the Senate or in the House. We put in $400 million last year, and we had to embarrass the administration in public to get them to actually spend it. We're going to have additional Ukraine money this year. I would say to the policymakers at the White House and the Pentagon, the American people are in favor of us helping Ukraine. Republicans are in favor of us helping Ukraine. Democrats are in favor of helping Ukraine. We're pretty together on this issue, so we're not going away. One final question. What are the specific objectives of U.S. strategy up in the Arctic? What role will Arctic allies like Denmark and Norway play in achieving them?
So I can address some of that. I'm a huge proponent of the Arctic. In my job at U.S. Police Forces, as the NORTHCOM component commander, I think played a vital role with the NORTHCOM team to enhance our presence in the Arctic. We do that in partnership with the European Command and Indo-Pacific Command commander. I kind of break it down a couple ways. One, it's important to have presence there. You got to walk the battlefield. So that means operating above the Arctic Circle consistently with surface ships, with aircraft carriers, and of course our submarine force. Second, you have to have special capabilities to be successful up there. That means communication systems that can work at high latitudes. It means systems on board that can handle those temperatures. And it means understanding flows of marginal ice zone and the weather conditions up there. They're significant, and the climate is quite something. And the third thing, you have to have partners and allies. And the Arctic Council team is that we all are part of NATO now, with the exception of Russia. So partnerships matter above the Arctic Circle. So Finland, Sweden, Norway, of course, and a big one is Canada, of course. And we do a lot of operations with them. We just came off our biannual exercise called ICEX, where we're just there with, where we do that every 2 years. We know the Russians want to actually, call it their own. They'd like a 9-dash line around the North Pole, and we're not going to let that happen. We know that China wants to call the Arctic a near, Arctic nation state. We're not going to let them operate up there without being contested either. And so it's very important. And this goes to what we're doing in Alaska and the recapitalization and the facilitization of some of the places we're working in with the senators from Alaska. This goes to collaboration with the Coast Guard and what we're doing to rebuild their ice-breaking fleet and how we sustain their operations. So the Arctic's extremely important. Trillions of dollars of minerals, natural gas, oil, and rare earths. And the United States has to have a presence there, sir.
And then to show you this was a very bipartisan hearing, then you had Democratic Senator Coons kind of tying it all together. I want you to listen to all of this right here because, again, you're not seeing this in many other places. I don't think you're probably seeing it anywhere, right? And again, he goes through everything that I think is so important right now, like ally to ally, Navy to Navy. We have great relationships with other countries. It's at the political level that Trump and Hegseth and Rubio are undermining all of this. And this budget that's being asked right now for Congress to approve, or for the Senate to approve here, also seems to not take into account critical issues of modern warfare, the use of drones over battleships. And it seems to just be kind of a Trump ego play, and that generationally this can cause massive harm. We need to be focused on this, folks. And again, this is, I've said, a bipartisan issue. So let's listen to Senator Coons finish off this hearing, tying it all together on a bipartisan basis. Watch all of this. Here, play this clip.
With our allies, we are strong. With our allies, we can project force. With our allies, we can deter China, Russia, Iran, DPRK. They are increasingly aligned, but we increasingly are not. I led a bipartisan delegation, a bipartisan bicameral delegation to Denmark the same week our president threatened to take Greenland by force from our NATO ally, Denmark. I appreciate your testimony, Admiral, that at the Navy to Navy level, we're strong, but their capabilities are not just terrific. Their service alongside us when we asked in Afghanistan was outstanding. And their sacrifice, as we come to our Memorial Day, we should not forget. 52 Danes died in service in Afghanistan. And as Senator Tillis and Senator Murkowski and Senator Durbin and I were there at the memorial to the Danes who served and died alongside us, we should not forget that when our president says we never asked NATO for anything and they never did anything for us, that's heard loud and clear by our NATO allies. I am gravely concerned that in the Arctic, where the Canadians are stepping up and investing, we're walking away from a decades-old partnership with them. In Europe, where Russia is the single greatest threat to our security and stability, we're putting at risk the trust that we've earned by abruptly announcing withdrawals of thousands of American troops in a way that is not clearly planned or executed. And the chairman referenced the $400 million. When the secretary was in front of us, he got asked by several of us, we appropriated $400 million last year for Ukraine. Has it been spent? No. When will we get a spend plan? Last week. Do we have it today? No. I know this is above your pay grade, but Mr. Secretary, I hope you will convey, as you've heard from many of us, from the first questions from the chairman to my last question now, you're submitting a budget that puts things across the line from base budget to reconciliation, munitions, shipbuilding, the LSM that is essential to your ability to fight and win in the Western Pacific. If the reconciliation piece of this doesn't go through, we are going to have even bigger problems this year than last. So let me just briefly ask about those two things. Commandant, how important is it that you have the LSMs in the year ahead, and what will you do if that does not come through in reconciliation? How will that impact your warfighting capability?
Well, we'll be less mobile. We'll be less able to aggregate and disaggregate, and we'll be less able to contend with the PRC.
And is the major adversary for whom you are currently planning and for which we are currently investing in the Western Pacific, the PRC?
It is, sir.
Admiral Caudle, we spoke before, and you've spoken now, about how the Ukrainians have demonstrated remarkable mastery of naval drones. And in fact, they've pushed back Russia's Black Sea Fleet significantly. What happens to the Navy if your significant munitions request, which is divided between reconciliation regular, is denied and you don't get those munitions? And what does that do to shipbuilding, drones, and munitions for this coming year?
Sir, that's why it's so important. You know, the way I put it into a context, my base budget is about $270 billion. About a tenth of that, 1/10, is in my mandatory. You know, so, you know, the way it kind of looks across the entire budget, it's like a third is over in mandatory. But for me, the Navy, a tenth of my budget is there. A lion's share is in discretionary. So, but I need both. To your point, I need both. And so to the specifics of the risk, as I stated earlier, it is an F-35 procurement. It is an LSM, no question. That's where all six live. And the risk of munitions and the risk in the FISRM, we need to sustain our bases and our infrastructure.
So the reason I mentioned this in my opening, I'm mentioning it now, is that last year, the lack of coordination produced billions of dollars in what we call broken glass, problems that we had to fix because they were not fixed by the White House. And I recognize it's the White House, OMB, the Secretary's office that are making these decisions. But you've now heard from a whole series of senators, Republican and Democrat, that we've got clear priorities that we are at risk of not meeting. I also mentioned in my opening, I am really struggling, Mr. Secretary, with the Navy's headlong rush towards a Trump-class battleship. We have never previously named a class of ships for a currently serving president. In your opening, you referenced the Great White Fleet of 100 years ago, which helped project naval power for the United States. But I don't see how a new class of battleship at a cost of $50 billion over 5 years meets our operational needs at a time when most of our exchanges have been about how the lessons learned of Ukraine and the likely lessons being learned by the PRC are about the urgency of moving towards distributed autonomous systems. What operational problem are you trying to solve that isn't met by carriers and destroyers, submarines, and autonomous systems being deployed at a greater scale, Mr. Secretary?
Ranking Member Coons, I understand your concern, sir. As far as I can remember, just even looking at Popular Mechanics back in July of '88, it said the Battle Cruiser 2000, basically this large arsenal ship. When I was in UpNav in 96, the Surface Warfare Division in 2011, we had a requirement for a CGX, a large combatant. We've always had a requirement for a large combatant. The problem right now is the DDGs are completely decked out. The only ship with the Slick 32 Victor 7 is the USS Pinckney. It looks like this chipmunk with a cheek full of nuts right now because it's just so big. You can't add more to that ship. So we're looking at a large combatant in order to put those systems in there to have 200 VLS cells, to have conventional prompt strike, as well as the speed necessary to get from point A to point B. That's why we're looking at the nuclear power for that. I mean, look at the Ford. She was able to go from Venezuela to the Mediterranean in 5 days. That's what we need right now, to be able to bring an arsenal out there quickly with a lot of firepower and launch missiles and return back, sir.
If we look at just, look, in 1988 in Popular Mechanics, that might have been an interesting proposal. If we just look back at the abrupt canceling of the frigates, if we look back at the LCS and what's happened, we have a profound mismatch between ship design, shipbuilding capability, and our capacity to deploy ships at scale. I am profoundly concerned that this is a $50 billion boondoggle where the delivery timeline is a political timeline, not a practical timeline, and where the clear lessons of Ukraine and the clear threats facing Taiwan are not being well served by that investment. You've been asked by Republicans and Democrats, should we sell to Taiwan the weapons that have already been promised? I say yes. And you've been asked by senators, both Republican and Democrat, are we learning the lessons of Ukraine? And to show that we do, we should prioritize drones over massive battleships. My view is that Ukraine today is on the front lines of freedom, and we need to act like it. I carry this in my pocket every day. It was handed to me a month ago in Odessa by a Navy chaplain from Ukraine. We've got more lessons to learn from them than we have learned, and this budget doesn't, in my view, reflect that.
What do you think? What do you think about all of this? Let me know. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. And thank you all so much for watching this. It's a really important video.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.